CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success.
So yesterday, you and I had, shout out to Bob Latino, we had a high-level meeting and we forgot to document it with a good image. So we're
technically, this is still a high-level meeting. We can just take one, during this session.
That's true.
Yeah.
Where's AJ?
That's a great question.
Hey, everybody. I'm Greg Christensen with CMMS Radio. We're doing a test run here with George Williams, Reliability X, and I just want to share with you this awesome human being was kind enough to drive down from Pennsylvania to bring this awesome podcast setup that I get to use during this awesome conference. It's beautiful down here. There's people coming in. They're all here for learning about asset management. It's Streamline Asset Management User Conference. It's sponsored primarily by Hexagon and these awesome consultants that actually help with that kind of a platform that a lot of you might know that I'm always wondering, how am I going to use this? Well, that's what these folks do. That's why I'm here. I like that. I like people to deliver on what the outcomes are supposed to be. And I think, George, you're wired not only similarly, but you go even further on that and really cut to what the realities are of what is maintenance, how do you really develop a reliability program. It starts with the people and the process. How, just in a general kind of response, would you say the technology fits in? Does it get layered in during the people and process build out when you're kind of speccing out a plant turnaround, or is it once you've got that figured out, then you bring the tech in?
So you've got to choose the tech that will fit your process best. You need the process first, because every business is slightly different, right? There's some truth to, well, we're different, some truth to we're different. But at the same time, you can't enforce a process around the technology and then hope for the best. That doesn't work.
So in my world, we've often seen, back when I had like a small CMMS that we were putting out there in the world, a lot of times there's something that was in place that everybody was used to, and then somebody will parachute in. I say this a lot on the podcast, and they're going to get what they want. And then the team starts freaking out because they're like, we've been using this for 3 years. It gets us what we need. And it's because that guy or gal just didn't like what they have. You see that a lot still to this day?
I do, but then you also see the other end of the spectrum. They go, well, we do have a process in place. I want you to completely customize this solution for that process. So it goes both ways, right? Like, it's not just one way. It can be a disaster. I've seen systems completely butchered, and unfortunately, integrators perfectly happy to butcher that system and customize it to what someone used to be used to, right? Instead of
a lot of billables.
Can we make the process operate well within the system we have? Sometimes they don't even want to answer that. They're just like, make it do exactly what I used to have, and so they go, oh yeah, no problem. Here's the invoice for us completely customizing it. So you get both ends of that spectrum, but that's why it's so critical to have somebody that has some level of expertise and integrity to sit down with you and review your current process and current utilization and help you pick the solution that's best for you.
Yeah, and so on that, and I want to be kind about this, but I want to be direct. When it comes to that integrity piece, and say, for example, we've got the solution provider that is coming in. They want to get a deal. They got to hit their quota, and they may or may not know that that's going to be an endeavor that the outcome just can't happen, won't happen. So do you have to be willing to say, no, that's just not going to happen, but we can find this other way, and that's kind of a better approach?
The good news is I don't own a CMMS system, so I don't have to make that choice.
Right.
But I think that's why I don't own a CMMS system, because I send my clients to my competitors. I've told the client, we're not the right vendor for you. You need to go see this person. I've done that on more than one occasion. It's really tough to do, I think, in the software space that somebody would say,
go to this system.
Yeah, I think we're overkill, or I think we don't have enough for where your maturity level is. I highly doubt a salesperson's going to say that to somebody, but I'm not saying it's impossible, but
It's out there. I've known a few,
Yeah.
whether I was looking in a mirror or some of the people I knew at competitive
Yeah.
providers, where I always thought it would be really cool if the competitors in the CMMS and EAM spaces had kind of a lane where they said, hey, if you can't handle this, this, and this, we actually can.
Right.
So we have that kind of available to us, and they can kind of work it out themselves.
I know, but first you got to get one of them to admit they don't have something.
I wonder what that sticking point is, right?
It's hard to do. But you've got really, like, we're at Streamline, and Hexagon's solution is incredibly robust. I mean, it does soup to nuts. It can handle everything asset management.
Yeah,
Not everybody needs all that.
of course.
And they'll, honestly admit that, but they'll also tell you that their solution is scalable, right? You don't necessarily have to have all the bells and whistles.
Right, you can start here and then.
And I think that's important for people to realize when they do evaluate vendors, to ask that question. Do I have to buy the entire, buffet, or can I pick and choose some stuff here? Is it all in one, or is it or is it a la carte style? What can I do for where I'm at in my current maturity?
Yeah.
And not every vendor offers that, but some vendors do. And so I think that's another critical piece, is don't just assume that because it's so robust and maybe your maturity level is not where it needs to be, that a solution like Hexagon is the wrong solution. That doesn't necessarily mean that it is.
Well, it's interesting because Dan Anderson, who's on your team at Reliability X, we were just talking about that, and I was telling him that one of the reasons I wanted to come here is we're talking to all of the groups that actually help the clients leverage this platform properly. And that matters to me because I'm after the outcomes. I think when you go and you secure business based on solving the problem that the client has, and then you move forward, the goal would be for them to thrive on that platform that's being integrated. And they're a really big company. It's got a lot of complexity. And then your group, along with these other consultant groups that are here, know how to make that happen. So I was interested in seeing that, getting that story and understanding, because I myself, for years, was like, well, I love these systems because those are the ones I'm going to sell against, when I had a solution that we knew what we could do, but we were the ones doing it.
Right.
We weren't that big, so we
Yeah.
could do that. So it's really fascinating to me. How often do you think the kind of pricing gets in the way for the client when they have an outcome and they've, say, for example, not understood the impact of the problem that they have?
I think 99.9% of companies don't realize the investment, either monetarily or administratively, that it takes for that to be successful. So right. I think they fall short often. Don't get me wrong, companies spend hundreds of millions putting in systems sometimes. I'm not advocating for that either. But oftentimes they want to know what the ROI is on, we'll say, if I'm going to date myself, on the floppy disk.
Yeah.
Right? They want to know, well, what you bought the system, what's the ROI? There is no ROI for buying the system. And so I think companies fall short, and they BS a savings that isn't going to exist unless they actually use the system right. But then they don't get the support from the company to use the system right. They don't get the administrative workload. They don't understand how much it takes to keep the equipment hierarchy accurate. Like, they just don't invest what it actually takes to get the value from the system, where you can make choices, all the change management that has to happen at the shop floor for people to understand the value of closing codes and all kinds of other things. Oftentimes those initiatives fall a little short, and it's you hope that the vendors are doing the system justice by explaining all that up front, but the hard part about that is you could price yourself out of the competition by telling people what it really takes. And because if not every vendor is doing that, you're at a slight disadvantage, because you've said, hey, this is a ton of work here.
Well, that's the risk of transparency, but
yeah.
When you have that kind of transparency, and this gets to the heart of the matter, you and I were talking about this at our high-level meeting yesterday, if that kind of transparency exists, that will eventually be known.
Right.
And then you would be kind of the place to go for your software, because they're going to tell you very accurately. And I think, in fairness, a lot of the folks on the front line, when it comes to, the folks doing the sales, the business development, the demos, some of that they don't have visibility to. They really don't, because the bigger the organization gets, it starts to become difficult to carry the original mission and insights forward. But I love that idea, that transparency, but it feels wrong when you do it, because you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. But if you can stick to your guns, it can really work out. I mean, I love all this. This has been really fun. And again, just to close this out, I'm so awesome. I'm so excited. I'm still tired, man. I'm on West Coast time.
We got to get a wrench to tighten that so you're not holding that mic, that's for sure.
It's killing it. We're never going to put this out because we're in Greenville, and I said, Greenland? George Williams, thank you for being here with me on CMMS Radio at Streamline in Greenville,
Thanks,
South
Greg.
Carolina.
Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit cmmsradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.